these materials in his house. I think the court's now heard all the testimony. I think it's very minimal weight, even for the 2003 materials. This is 10 years before, and it's locked in a file cabinet. So not only do you not have it being used for any untoward purpose, but it's simply possessed, and it's possessed in a secure fashion, and it's possessed 10 years before any events in this case. It just seems to me that at some point the court has to draw the line, and the court has, of course, been drawing lines throughout this trial as to what has the kind of probative value that should come before the jury and what doesn't.
Those books, one of the books, both of the books, are pictorial essays of adolescent boys. One of them, about 10% of the photographs are completely nude boys. And the other one, 90% of the photographs are completely nude boys. The possession of those books by Mr. Jackson, we believe, is evidence of a prurient interest in adolescent boys, and it's exactly contemporaneous with the state of the evidence as to all of the 1108 witnesses.
Well, I took a peek on the internet. Norman Rockwell, it ain't but prurient or poignant.
Okay, on 841, if you look at that, it appears to be Mr. Jackson's own inscription, and he says, "Look at the true spirit of happiness and joy in these boys' faces. This is the spirit of boyhood, a life I never had and will always dream of. This is the life I want for my children. MJ."
Now, of course, well, I should say, of course, I'm sounding like Howard Weitzman now. The judge let this stuff in. Hello, guys. Welcome back.
Good evening.
The idea that, go for it, Howard, go for it.
I heard Bob Sanger tell this judge that he's drawn some lines. The only line this judge wants to draw is at sentencing.
Oh, that's way
Howard.
too hard.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning. Hold on, let's back up. Let's lay some foundation for our viewers so that everybody can catch up, be on the same page. What happened here is an argument outside the presence of the jurors with respect to some items seized from, not this case, we've heard about books and magazines seized in this case with fingerprints and some other indications that they were used or shown to Gavin and his brother in this case. These are not those materials. These are materials from 1993. They've been locked in a file cabinet in Jackson's house, and they've been in police custody since the 1993 investigation.
What they're trying to show under Rule 1108, which, as we know, has to do with prior bad acts, prior uncharged misconduct, which is specifically written so that it will show a propensity on the part of a defendant to molest children.
Right.
That's the argument as to why it got in.
And, of course, the inscription means that it doesn't show that propensity at all. It fits in neatly with the defense theory.
And what is that inscription?
The inscription, of course, is look at the true spirit of happiness and joy in these boys' faces. It's the spirit of boyhood, a life I'll never have that I want for my children. That's exactly the defense theory. It fits in perfectly with the defense theory. But even having said that, it's ridiculous that this would come into evidence.
But doesn't it support the 1993 charge, which is in this case?
You mean the charge that never took place? You said in
the charge that didn't get prosecuted, although it was investigated and only dropped after,
as far as the law is concerned.
It was only dropped
after you got all that money for your client.
Yeah, that was your case,
after, after your client gave all that money to the family of Jordy.
You said the prosecution came out swinging. All I thought about was Don Quixote and swinging at windmills.
Oh, Howard waxes poetic.
That was very good.
Don't quit your day job, Howard. It wasn't that good. Next, do you want to be a billionaire or a millionaire or as rich as Howard Weitzman, Ricky Kleeman, and Sean Chapman-Holly? Under questioning by Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss, bank manager Beverly Wagner describes how to cash a monster check.
Do you recognize that check?
Yes.
How is it that you recognize that check?
From the name on the account and the routing number for U.S. Bank and the account number.
All right. Did you participate personally in the cashing of that check as branch manager for U.S. Bank?
Yes.
And were you working at the Santa Monica branch at that time?
Yes.
And how is it that you personally participated in the cashing of that check?
This is way above the approval limit for a branch manager, and I had to get authority to even cash the check, so it had to come through my hands.
How much is that check for?
$1 million.
And can you tell me in what manner that check was cashed? In other words, was it deposited? Did the bank disperse those funds in other methods? Tell me exactly how the individual cashed that check.
Cash.
They walked in with this check and walked out with $1 million in cash.
Yes.
Did the bank have to make any special arrangements to put together that much money in cash?
Yes.
How much advance time is necessary for an individual to notify the bank that it will need to have certain funds on hand for a large cash disbursement like this?
Objection, relevance?
Overruled. You may answer.
A minimum of about 7 days.
All right. I now show you Exhibit 419, page 3. Did you also participate in the cashing of that check?
Yes.
That check is for how much?
$500,000.
And did the same individual who cashed this first check cash that second check?
Yes.
Was this check also cashed for currency?
Yes.
So the individual walked in with this check and walked out with $500,000 in U.S. currency.
Yes.
The individual who cashed these two checks, what is his name?
Fred Schaffel.
Fred Schaffel is Mark Schaffel, who we refer to. His name is Frederick Mark Schaffel. A lot of money going on here.
A lot of money.
In cash, too, folks.
It's a lot of money going on. I still would like to know what was the satchel that this $1 million in cash went into.
$1 million?
But the reality is, even I, who am in this seat, going to defend the prosecution in this case, I don't understand why this is in evidence.
Well, doesn't it go to, Howard and Sean, doesn't it go to the idea that they needed some cash on hand because they were whisking these folks off, secreting them off, or attempting to, or going to, planning to Brazil or other parts? They needed cash on hand.
There's only two problems. One, they can't prove that. And two, once again, you had a judge let evidence before this jury that is irrelevant and prejudicial.
It may be that at some point, and they only have a little time left, they could try to tie it up. But right now, it is one of those images of, oh, they can go get $1 million, they can come back and get some more.
Where's Mark
And
Schaffel?
what I want to know is, where's Michael Jackson?
And where is Michael Jackson? And aren't they trying to finance a rebuttal video as well? I mean, that's sort of undisputed. Do they need money to finance the video? Who
Well,
knows?
I mean, ostensibly, you would think that they could write a check to whoever's shooting the video, wouldn't you?
We're sitting here speculating because the prosecution can't tie it up and won't.
Well, certainly, if the defense wrote a check, or if the unindicted co-conspirators wrote a check, the defense could bring in the people who we wrote the check to or gave the cash to if it wasn't used to sweep these folks off who were conspired against. Well, that's the argument anyway. When we return, a grimacing Howard Weitzman and, you know, $1 million here, $500,000 there. Pretty soon, you're talking about more money than Weitzman probably makes in about a week and a half. It's mystery money. Is it petty cash? Or is it just a little loose change for the king of pop? Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. What is the story with the mysterious check for $1 million cashed by Mark Schaffel, Michael Jackson's associate, whose full name is Frederick Mark Schaffel? We learned that from the indictment. And then there's that tiny check for, $500,000. Was it hush money? Was it used to secrete the accuser and his folks off to some foreign land? Well, here's how bank manager Beverly Wagner responded to cross-examination according to the courtroom transcripts.
And now you've identified two checks, and you're telling us on these two checks, Exhibits 418 and 419, page 3 in each one, that you personally participated in those transactions?
Yes, sir.
So you remember Mr. Schaffel coming in and getting cash for those two checks, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you see my client, Mr. Jackson, sitting there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did Mr. Jackson come in the bank?
No.
Have you ever seen Mr. Jackson before in person?
No.
Okay. Were you aware that Mr. Schaffel was a customer of the bank?
Yes.
Okay. And you knew that personally, is that correct?
Yes.
And you knew it personally in part because you cashed these two checks for him, right?
Yes.
Did you have other dealings with him?
No.
So the two times you really remember seeing Mr. Schaffel in person were with regard to these two checks, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. A little hesitancy. You may have seen them.
More than twice, yes.
But the two that stick out in your mind were these two, I take it?
Yes, sir.
Next, who signed on the dotted line?
I guess what I'm getting at is, to cash these checks, you had to make sure he really was a customer of your bank, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And had he been a customer of your bank for a long time?
Yes.
All right. And during the course of his being a customer for your bank, did you conclude that he was trustworthy as far as dealing with him on these 2 rather large checks?
Yes.
Now, the checks were drawn on an account that's called Neverland Valley Entertainment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And was it your understanding that Mr. Schaffel was the signatory on that account?
Yes.
Was there anybody else who was a signatory on that account?
Yes.
Who else?
Michael Jackson.
Did Mr. Jackson ever sign any checks, to your knowledge, or sign any documents whatsoever on that account?
Yes.
Other than the signature cards?
I'm not sure.
Objection, Foundation.
Sustained.
Did you review the records to determine whether or not Mr. Jackson ever signed anything other than the signature cards on that account?
No, sir.
All right. And you did not verify Mr. Jackson's signature other than it was on the signature card. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In other words, he didn't come in and sign in your presence.
No.
You ended up looking in your records and you saw a signature card that appeared to have a signature for Michael Jackson. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. And other than that, all of your dealings, as far as you know, were with Frederick Mark Schaffel. Is that correct? On these accounts?
No.
Were there other people that may have come in?
Not come in, but that I spoke with.
Spoke with. Okay. All right. And you do not know what happened to this money after Mr. Schaffel walked out of the bank with it. Is that correct?
No.
All right, Ricky Kleeman, I have to correct myself with respect to the purpose of this money potentially. Again, and I think you all make a good point. We're not sure what the money was used for. I suggested that it could have been used to sweep folks off to Brazil, but apparently that trip to Miami and the subsequent planned trip to Brazil happened back in February. This money doesn't get withdrawn until April of the same year.
The timing is peculiar, but much of the timing in this case is peculiar.
Yeah.
I think that if the prosecution does not tie it up before it rests, it is just something out there in space signifying nothing.
Exactly.
Well,
and the
or
jurors,
does it signify something?
well, it seems like it signifies nothing if they don't tie it up. The jurors have got to wonder, this is it? This is what you've got? You put this out there without anything more? It's just all inference and conjecture? What if it's nothing?
Yeah, but they're
We'll see
not
by tomorrow.
done yet, hopefully. Now, in just a minute, we're going to hear some testimony from Detective Craig Bonner about some phone calls, changing gears completely from the money, made by someone in the Jackson camp, perhaps Jackson himself, just days before the Bashir documentary aired. But first, Detective Bonner's investigation could relate to some earlier testimony by the accuser's mother, Janet. Here's what Janet said about an alarming call from the King of Pop himself.
I understand. We're just talking about the phone conversation right now.
Okay.
Did he mention the name Martin Bashir in this phone conversation?
He just said Bashir.
Okay. Did you know what that meant
No.
at that time? He said to you that your child was in danger?
Yes.
What did he say with regards to your child being in danger?
That he was receiving death threats. He was in danger.
Did that alarm you?
Yes.
Did you believe what he said at that time?
It's until he started telling me that the children had shared with him about how David was this bad guy because my guard was here, and when he was telling me all these things were...
All right. We'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
But right now, with regards to your son being in danger,
Okay.
did he describe the nature of the danger to you?
Just death threats because of this Bashir thing.
Did he tell you who the people were who were issuing the death threats?
No.
Did he use the word death threats or the term death threats?
He said he was in danger.
Did he tell you what he wanted Gavin to say in this press conference?
No. I don't remember.
Did you agree that Gavin could go to Miami?
No.
What did you tell Mr. Jackson?
Well, I told him that if my son is in danger, then me and my kids have to go.
Did you ask him at any time if he contacted the police?
No.
Did you have any discussion with him about what he was doing to remedy this problem of danger?
No, I just trusted him.
On direct examination, Detective Bonner confirms that a phone call was made from the presidential suite at the Turnberry Hotel in Miami to the L.A. home of Janet's then-boyfriend, now second husband, and Gavin's stepfather.
I'm going to put on the screen Exhibit 202, page 6, and the call that you're referring to. Is that the first entry for the date of 2/5 on this exhibit?
Yes, the first telephone call entry.
Okay, and that appears to have lasted for 27 minutes.
Correct.
And is that represented on your chart by the link between Fred Macy Presidential Suite and Jay Jackson?
Yes, it is.
All right, Howard, what about this evidence?
Well, now it totally ties it up. Now I understand everything. I understand everything.
The presidential suite, arguably the suite that Michael Jackson was staying in, certainly his
James, you can't even say it with a
associates,
straight face.
certainly his associates wouldn't be staying in the presidential suite, you would think.
No,
it's Michael Jackson's suite,
right.
but obviously
the phone
Janet...
call totally ties up the allegation that he molested this child.
Well,
it
ties up the conversation.
The only thing it does is corroborate the fact that they were in Turnberry. Obviously, we have to assume that Janet made this call to her now husband, and it's made from, as we know, the Fred Macy presidential suite. What we learn about is that is an alias that Michael Jackson uses when he travels, or used to use when he travels.
But you know what? We have to thank the producers of the show today, because this questioning goes on for hours with phone calls back and forth, them demonstrating all of this phone activity.
Right.
I guess to show that they're freaking out, but that too helps the defense. They are panic-stricken because the first video, the Bashir video, goes out and looks bad, and they're trying to make a rebuttal video. It doesn't really prove what the prosecution's trying to say.
And again, doesn't directly tie to Michael Jackson, although this is pretty close. It's from Michael Jackson's suite, and according to this witness, it is from Michael Jackson. The problem is her credibility is a little itty-bitty shaky. When we return, if a call goes out from a luxury suite, you like that, didn't you? Does it mean that the king of pop is on the line? Stay with us. Litty itty bitty.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Did Michael Jackson definitely call the accuser's mother from that Turnberry suite? Well, here's how Detective Bonner responded to questions along that line on cross-examination according to the courtroom transcripts.
Okay, some big picture questions. First of all, I don't really want to go through the exact times of minutes of everything, but there are some big picture questions. First of all, in all these phone records that you analyzed, were you able to determine from the phone records whether or not Michael Jackson was ever on a single call?
No.
All right. Another overall question. When there are phone calls that are placed to, they're coming into a place like the Turnberry or one of the other hotels, those calls go to a switchboard, is that correct?
Correct.
And then the switchboard would send the calls to particular rooms or particular staff people or guests or whatever, correct?
Correct.
And so, number one, you have no way of determining where those calls ended up, correct?
Other than to say they went to the Turnberry itself, no.
That's right. As far as you could trace it, it got to the reception desk, and then where it went from there, we don't know.
Correct.
Okay. And once again, if there's a 1-minute call to one of those hotels, there's no reason to believe that the call actually got completed to a guest in the hotel.
Not necessarily, no.
In your investigation, the course of your investigation, did you determine that the presidential suite was a multi-room suite?
Not personally, no.
You heard that, though?
I have heard that, yes.
Do you know how many telephones were located in that suite?
I do not.
Do you know how many people associated with MJJ Productions or with other people in this case or in or out of this case, how many people were associated with that room?
I don't know.
Do you know how many people came in and out of that room?
No, I do not.
Do you know how many people used the phone or phones in that room?
Of course not.
Pardon?
Of course not.
All right, gang, as we wrap this up, I want to deal with two issues. What is left for the prosecution to do? Howard Weissman, I know he's going to say they need to put on a case. And what do we have to look forward to from the defense? Sean?
Well, you know, the bold move from the defense would be to put on nothing at all. This prosecution case was so lackluster, they would have to be very courageous to put nothing on, but it would also be very effective. Yeah. I think that Mesereau, though, can't resist. He's got a lot of very compelling evidence, I understand, and I think that we have that to look forward to.
What does the prosecution have left to do now to tie up?
Well, it has been said, and we will know by our show tomorrow, that they have a blockbuster witness left. Now, we will find out. And this is for all of our viewers, including us. If they do not have a blockbuster witness left, they are simply tying up the loose ends, particularly pertaining to the conspiracy count, and then they're done.
What about that, Howard?
Let's see if they have Mark Chaffel on tomorrow, because that's the only thing I think they could do.
Taking the immunity.
To change it, because today they proved a lot. They proved that 10 or 12-year-old pictures had nothing to do with this case. They put on banking evidence and phone calls and didn't tie him to Michael Jackson. So they had a banner date.
Rumors also abound that Michael Jackson may take the stand. What do you think? Quickly.
I've always said Mesereau is pro having Jackson take the stand.
I will put him on the stand.
He doesn't need to.
All right, we'll see what's going to happen with that. So,
James, I just want to correct one thing I said quickly, if I may. If the date of that 27-minute phone call was when Janet was already there, then it could be hers. If it's before she got there, then it's Michael's or somebody else's. That's it.
Interesting. Well, we have to leave it right there. What is left, we ask you now, for the prosecution? Are they ending with a bang or a bust? Something in between? Be sure to watch our exclusive coverage of the Michael Jackson trial tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Where? E!